Hello everyone and welcome to my video lecture. So in the last lecture we had studied about the biological tools which are required for recombinant DNA technology, and under that we had studied about enzymes. Okay, we had studied about the restriction enzymes, then we studied about the cloning vectors and about the competent host, right? So we have completed with that part of tools and technique required for recombinant DNA technology. Before we start with our today's part of actual recombinant DNA technology, if you haven't subscribed to my channel and you are watching this video, kindly do subscribe. Also press the bell icon so that you get regular updates whenever I upload any video. Okay, so let's start. So today we are going to start with the actual mechanism of recombinant DNA technology. Okay, now this is basically made up of some number of steps. Okay, so we have to stepwise go and we have to study how this recombinant DNA technology is being practiced. Okay, now the first step under recombinant DNA technology is, so I'm going to write down the step. The first step is isolation of desired gene, or I can write down into bracket over here DNA fragment from donor microorganism or from the donor. Okay, same thing. Now what is the first step? So basically we have already seen that in recombinant DNA technology the required gene, okay, of our interest, it is inserted into the vector, and then the vector and the required gene are inserted into the host. Okay, that is how recombinant DNA technology is practiced, right? But for us to insert the required gene into the vector, first of all we need the required gene. Okay, now where is that required gene coming from? That required gene is basically coming from the DNA of certain organism. So the first step in obtaining the required gene is to select the organism. Okay, once the organism is selected, so first step is to select the organism. Okay, you select the cell of the organism from which you want the gene. Once that cell is selected, then the next thing is to break the cells, because you want to separate the DNA from the cell. See, the cell, as I have already told you, it is made up of many macromolecules, right? So the first thing that you want to do is you want to separate the different components of the cell from each other. For example, you want to separate the DNA, you want to separate the proteins, the fats, carbohydrates, all the different organelles. So first step is to basically separate all the components of the cell, right? The cell is the donor cell or the microorganism from which you want the required gene. Okay, now how will you separate that? So normally an instrument which is called as the homogenizer is used. Now homogenizer is like a blender, but please remember that the homogenizer does not break up all the components of the cell. If you use a normal blender and if you put a cell or a tissue in it to separate all the parts, then it will basically disrupt all the parts. See, here you want intact DNA, because from the DNA you are going to get the required gene, so you don't want to destroy the DNA. So homogenizer is a kind of a blender which will separate all the components of the cell, but at the same time it will keep all the different parts of the cell intact. Okay, so all the different organelles will be intact, the DNA will be intact, so all of them will get separated from each other from the cell, but they will remain intact. So a homogenizer is used. Then the next thing is, after the homogenizer is used, all the parts of the cell will be separated from each other. Then normally a detergent is used. Okay, a detergent is normally used to wash off the unnecessary parts. So all the components which I've separated, all the unnecessary parts are washed off using a detergent. Is that clear? And finally, since you need the DNA, because you need the required gene, so to get the DNA, now that DNA you need to precipitate out from the solution. See, when you have homogenized the cells, that homogenized mixture is basically in the liquid form. So now from that liquid form you want to precipitate the DNA, okay, and for that normally chilled ethyl alcohol or chilled ethanol is used, and by pouring chilled ethanol what happens is the DNA precipitates out, okay, and this DNA which precipitates out, it can be spooled, okay, so the process is called as spooling. So a glass rod or a rod can be used, and this DNA which is formed, it is in the form of white threads, very fine white threads, and those white threads are floating on the surface of the homogenized mixture, okay. So those threads can be lifted by using a glass rod or something, and they can be shifted into some other container. Is this clear? Okay, and then that DNA can be washed, okay, because if you don't wash the DNA, then it will be having many components which you don't need. Is this clear? So are these steps clear how you have obtained DNA from the cell? Okay, so first thing is to select the organism from which you want the required gene, correct? That required gene you are going to insert into the cloning vector. Then once you have decided the organism, you take the cell of that organism and you crush that cell, or you separate, sorry, not crush, you separate the components of the cell. Why? Because you need only the DNA, so you use a homogenizer. After using the homogenizer, all the different parts are separated, but DNA is soluble in water, so you need to precipitate it out. So you will use some chemical which precipitates it out. Normally chilled or cold ethanol or ethyl alcohol is used. Now this is not given in the book, I'm just telling you. Once you pour that ethanol in the mixture, that DNA will precipitate out in the form of white fine threads. So you will, if you use a glass rod, you can spool it out, just like when you are eating noodles with the help of a spoon, you will spool those noodles and eat. In the same way, you use a glass rod and you will spool out the DNA. You will shift it to another container, you will wash it because it will have impurities attached to it. So you have the DNA with you. Is this clear? Okay, so you have the purified DNA with you. Now, is our first step complete? No. You want to isolate the desired gene. What is a desired gene? Desired gene is a DNA fragment. See, here you have got the entire DNA of the cell. You don't want the entire DNA. An entire DNA is very long. It is having thousands of nucleotides. You want just a gene. A gene is only a small fragment of a DNA which is having some nucleotides. So now how will you get the required gene from the DNA? Very simple. What we will be using is, we will be using restriction endonucleases or restriction enzymes. Is this clear? Okay, so that DNA which you have got, that you are going to cut with a suitable restriction enzyme, and everybody knows that restriction enzymes normally cut the DNA at specific locations. For example, if I am using EcoR1, then EcoR1 will normally cut the DNA which is having this sequence GAATTC on one strand, okay, that is from 5' to 3', and on the other strand the sequence will be CTTAAG. And what will EcoR1 do is, it will produce a cut between the GNA from here over here, and this will be the cut. Is this clear? So this is how EcoR1 cut. Similarly, different restriction enzymes will recognize different sites. So what we will be doing is, we have got the DNA, we will add restriction enzyme to that, whichever suitable restriction enzyme that you can use. There are many restriction enzymes, and that restriction enzyme is going to break. So suppose if this is your DNA, if this is your entire double-stranded DNA, then after using restriction endonucleases or restriction enzymes, your DNA will be divided into many fragments. All the fragments will be of different lengths, correct? And these fragments are formed because of cutting by restriction enzyme. Please remember that. Okay, because of the restriction enzyme, your DNA has been cut into many smaller parts called as fragments. So these are your DNA fragments, correct? And if you remember, this is also called as RFLP, restriction fragment length polymorphism, because all the lengths are of different size. Now you are having these fragments over here. Now which fragment will you choose? Very simple, the fragment having your required gene, that fragment you will choose. For example, if I name these fragments, okay, I name them as fragment A, fragment B, fragment C, fragment D, fragment E. Suppose if the sequence of your gene that you required, that sequence is AA. Suppose that sequence that you require, that sequence is AATG on one strand, and on the opposite strand it will be TTAC, right? So suppose if this sequence is present in fragment D, if this required gene which you want, if that sequence is present in fragment D, then you will select fragment D. If it is present in fragment C, you will select fragment C. So now once you have cut the DNA using restriction enzymes, out of those many fragments which are formed, you will select the fragment having your desired gene. Very simple. The same sequence of the gene, if it is present in the fragment, that means you have to choose that fragment. Is this clear? Okay, so I hope this part is clear. So I will write down over here that DNA is basically cut with suitable restriction enzyme and you get DNA fragments. Okay, and out of all those DNA fragments, you will select the fragment which is having your desired gene. The same sequence on the gene should be present on the fragment. Is this clear? Okay, so once you have selected that fragment, that selected fragment becomes your required gene, or it becomes your desired gene. Is this clear? This is very simple. Okay, now please remember, this gene which you have selected, this gene is also called as passenger. I will use a different color. This gene is also called as passenger DNA. Please remember. Okay, passenger DNA, or it is also called as the foreign DNA. All right, and it is also called as the desired gene, or it is also called as the DNA fragment. So all these four terms mean the same thing. The desired gene which you are going to insert into the cloning vector, it is also called as the DNA fragment, it is also called as the passenger DNA, or it is also called as the foreign DNA. So if I use any of the four terms, the meaning is same, it means the desired gene. Is this clear? Okay, please remember, these desired genes which will be formed, they will be having sticky ends, or they will be having cohesive ends, or they will be having staggered ends, or they will be having blunt ends. Now you have already seen the video on restriction enzymes, so I'm sure you know what sticky ends and blunt ends are. For example, if I use EcoR1 enzyme, so I'm going to rub this off, I will just show this to you. Suppose if I use EcoR1 enzyme, EcoR1 restriction enzyme, then it recognizes this sequence GAATTC, right, on one strand, and on the other strand it will recognize CTTAAG. This is a palindrome. Is this clear? Right, you know what a palindrome is. Now after cutting with EcoR1, you get two fragments. So one fragment will be like this, G, and it will be bound to CTTAAG, and the other fragment which you will be getting, that will be AATTC, and that will be bound to another one which is called as G. Are you getting this? Now what is sticky end? So if you see this area, okay, this area is empty, that means all these nucleotides are unpaired. Similarly, this area is empty because all these nucleotides are unpaired. So this is called as sticky end because they can stick with complementary nucleotides. Are you getting this point? So these are called as sticky ends, or they are called cohesive. Cohesive means sticky, okay, or they are called staggered ends. Staggered means this kind of a shape, L shaped. Okay, if you see over here, this is like this, okay, and this shape is like this, so that is L shaped or staggered. Is this clear? And if I am talking about blunt ends, then blunt ends means that there are no unbalanced nucleotides left. For example, suppose if the sequence is AAGG, right? This is the sequence, and suppose over here, I'm sorry, suppose if the sequence is AATT and here it is TTAA, and suppose if the restriction enzyme cuts this DNA into two fragments, one fragment is AATT and the other fragment is TTAA. Now there is no nucleotide which is unbalanced, so these are called as blunt ends. I have already taught you this in the restriction enzyme video, so I hope this is understood. So this fragments which you have, this desired gene which you have, it is going to have either sticky ends or blunt ends, and it is very necessary to have these ends so that it can go and attach to the cloning vector. So I hope this first part is clear. This is the first step and this is called as isolation of desired gene from donor microorganism. Is this clear? So I hope the steps are clear. First you take the cell, you separate all the components of the cell by using a homogenizer. Okay, once you separate all the parts of the cell, then you extract DNA, you purify the DNA. Okay, and then what you do is you cut the DNA with a suitable restriction enzyme. You will get many DNA fragments. Out of that you select the fragment having your desired gene, and now that fragment which you have selected, that is called as the foreign DNA, or it is called as passenger DNA. I will tell you why it is called as the passenger DNA. It is also called as the desired gene. So please remember that all these four terms have the same meaning. Is this clear? So that ends our first step of recombinant DNA technology. Is this clear? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a small diagram on this left side to show you what exactly has happened. So first of all, just imagine this as the original cell, right? And inside the original cell, this is the nucleus. Okay, and inside the nucleus, this is the DNA which is present. So what we have done is we have basically removed this DNA. Okay, so I will write down DNA extracted. Okay, and here I will write down donor cell. Okay, so from the donor cell the DNA has been extracted, and then what we have done, we have basically broken that DNA. Okay, so that DNA has been broken into many fragments. Okay, and that has been done by restriction enzymes. So over here I will show restriction enzymes, and out of these fragments, one of them you are going to select as the foreign DNA, or it is also called as the passenger DNA, or it is also called as the desired gene or DNA fragment. Is this clear? So is this first step clear? Okay, now we go to the next step. Okay, the next step is, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down. If we are having less space, then I will rub the steps, or I will do one thing, I will rub this step. So I hope this first step is clear. In the end we will draw a complete diagram for all the steps. So first step is very important. Once you understand the first step, it is very easy to understand the remaining steps. So after the first step, we have isolated the desired gene. Now we come to the second step. Okay, the second step in recombinant DNA technology is called as insertion of desired gene. Okay, into bracket I will write down passenger, or what is the other name, foreign DNA into cloning vector. So now see, first of all we have extracted the desired gene or the foreign DNA or the passenger DNA from your donor organism. We have done that. Now we need to put that desired gene into the cloning vector, right? This is the second step. So now what are we going to do? Now suppose if this is your cloning vector on the right side, just imagine we are using a plasmid as the cloning vector, then this is your plasmid. Okay, just imagine we are using the plasmid PBR322. Okay, this is your plasmid. Okay, it is going to have origin, it is going to have marker genes for antibiotic resistance, correct, and it is going to have promoter, operator, all those parts which are the properties of a cloning vector. So this is your plasmid which we are taking as a vector. Now suppose if this is my plasmid, and suppose if this is the gene, okay, I will show it over here. If suppose this is the DNA fragment which we had chosen in the first step, so I will write it down over here. This is your foreign DNA and this is your cloning vector. Okay, it is a plasmid. So now if I want to insert this foreign DNA or if I want to insert this passenger DNA into the cloning vector, what will I have to do? So I had told you this, the same restriction enzyme that we had used to cut the original DNA in the first step, that same restriction enzyme we will be using to cut the cloning vector. Okay, because we want to have complementary sticky ends. If we use a different restriction enzyme to cut this cloning vector, then that earlier sticky ends of foreign DNA and sticky ends of the cloning vector will not be complementary, they will not attach. Is this clear? So suppose if in the first step if we use the restriction enzyme PST1, then over here also for the cloning vector we have to use PST1. If in the first step we use EcoR1 to cut the DNA, then over here we have to use EcoR1. So please remember, in the first step the restriction enzyme that we use to cut the donor DNA, that same restriction enzyme you have to use to cut the cloning vector. So now that same restriction enzyme we use, and what we will do is we will cut the vector. Okay, and I will, if you want, I will show you. This is the piece which has been removed. Okay, now what is going to happen is, now this is your cloning vector which has been cut with the help of restriction enzyme, and this is your foreign DNA. Now both of them are going to have complementary sticky ends, so we will bring them closer, and what is going to happen is the complementary ends will attach to each other. Are you getting this? So what is going to happen is you are going to get a structure which is like this. This is your plasmid. Okay, this is your plasmid, and inside the plasmid is attached your desired gene. Please remember, for this attachment an enzyme is used, and that enzyme is called as DNA ligase. We have heard about DNA ligase during DNA replication. It is like a gum or it is like a glue. So over here to stick the complementary ends we are using DNA ligase. So is this clear? Is this part clear? So this step, insertion of desired gene into cloning vector, here the most important thing to remember is you have to use the same restriction enzyme that you have used to cut the original DNA. That same restriction enzyme that you used in the first step you will be using in the second step to cut your vector, whatever vector it is, bacteriophage, plasmid, cosmid, phagemid, artificial chromosome, anything that you are using, you will use the same restriction enzyme so that you get same kind of cut, so that the sticky ends will be complementary and they will attach to each other. Is this clear? So now foreign DNA and cloning vector, they can attach to each other, right? And that will be done with the help of DNA ligase. And now this molecule which you have got, this blue and green molecule, this molecule will be called as what? Can anybody guess? Very simple. This is called as your recombinant DNA. Is this clear? Why is it called recombinant? Because it is formed by the combination of the foreign DNA and your cloning vector, or it is formed by the combination of the passenger DNA and the cloning vector, or the required gene and the cloning vector. Both are joined. It is called as recombination, rDNA. Is this clear? I hope this is clear. So this is called as recombination DNA. That is why the technology is called as recombination DNA technique or rDNA technique. I hope this part is clear. Okay, now what you need to remember is, just like for desired gene you had used two words, you had used passenger DNA and you had used foreign DNA. Similarly over here, when we are talking about the cloning vector can also be called as the vehicle DNA, or it can be also called as the vector DNA. Please remember these words. So cloning vector can also be called as the vehicle DNA or the vector DNA. Now, why is the vector called as vehicle DNA and why is the desired gene called as passenger DNA? See, that desired gene, it is basically traveling from the donor organism to the host organism, correct? So that is why it is the passenger. A passenger normally travels from one place to another, but who is helping that passenger to travel? Vehicle. Who is helping that desired gene to travel from one place to another? The vector. So the vector becomes the vehicle and the required gene becomes the passenger. Is that clear? That is why the vector is called vehicle DNA and the required gene or the DNA fragment is called as the passenger DNA. So please remember these words, because any word can be used. For the required gene, you can use the word passenger DNA or foreign DNA. And for the cloning vector, you can use the word vehicle DNA or vector DNA. Is that clear? So vehicle DNA plus passenger DNA is called recombinant DNA, or vector DNA plus foreign DNA is called recombinant DNA, or cloning vector plus desired gene is called as recombinant DNA. Is this clear? Okay, so this is your second step. When you insert the desired gene into the cloning vector, what you get is called as the recombinant DNA, which is also called as rDNA. I will write it down over here. Is this clear? Okay, now please remember, when we explain this recombinant DNA mechanism, we are just explaining with the help of one example. For example, we are taking one plasmid, we are taking one desired gene, we are forming one recombinant DNA. But in the actual experiment, we are taking many hundreds of plasmids, and hundreds of plasmids are being cut by the same restriction enzyme, and similarly you are having hundreds of desired gene. So there are hundreds of recombinant DNAs formed. They are of the same time, they are duplicate copies of each other, but it is not a single one. Please remember, these experiments are there normally when you do your bachelor's or master's in biology, okay? And when you do this, these are basically liquids and these are single celled organisms, and plasmids and all these things are very, very small, so you cannot actually see them. You are just mixing different liquids according to instructions and you don't know what is actually happening. So please remember, you are not just taking one single plasmid, you are cutting it with restriction enzyme, you are cutting the DNA, you are forming one recombinant DNA. No, hundreds of recombinant DNAs are formed, but over here I cannot draw hundreds of recombinant DNAs. So please remember that when I am talking of each of these steps, we are not only doing it for one quantity, we are doing it for multiple quantities. So just imagine, in this step we have got 90 or 100 of such recombinant DNAs. All of them will be of the same type. Is this clear? Okay, so this second step is clear. So first step, from the DNA we got the desired gene, or we got the passenger DNA, or we got the foreign DNA. In the second step, we added the passenger or foreign DNA into the vector DNA, or we added it into the vehicle DNA or into the cloning vector, and what we got was the hybrid DNA, which is called as recombinant DNA. Now, which is the third step. So what we are going to do is, we are going to move ahead, and or I will do one thing, I'm going to rub this off. So now the third step is going to be, okay, let us write down the third step in the mechanism. So the third step is transfer of recombinant DNA into a suitable competent host. See, we are going stepwise, very simple. First we took out the required gene, then we attached the required gene with the cloning vector, we got recombinant DNA. What we have to do, we have to put the recombinant DNA into host, which is a suitable host. We have studied E. coli, H. pylori, okay, Bacillus haemophilus. So out of these bacteria you can use any one, okay. You can even use, by the way, Agrobacterium tumefaciens for agriculture. So all these bacteria are there, they can be used as a suitable host. So inside this host you have to put the recombinant DNA? Very simple. Now how will you put the recombinant DNA into the host? Very simple. So what happens is, I am sure you must have heard of this terminology which is called as transformation. What is the meaning of transformation? If you have heard about Griffith's experiment. So Griffith's experiment showed that bacteria, when they are surrounded with unknown DNA, then that bacteria tends to absorb that DNA inside it. Okay, for example, if you remember that experiment, suppose if this bacteria, okay, this was R strain bacteria of Diplococcus pneumonia, right? And this R strain, suppose it was surrounded by DNA of S strain. So I will write down DNA of S strain bacteria. Then what happened was, this DNA of S strain was taken by the R strain, okay, and when the DNA of S strain went inside the R strain got converted into S strain bacteria. So basically bacteria have this capability of absorbing a foreign DNA inside their body. So recombinant DNA is also a foreign DNA. So suppose if I have a bacterium over here, if I draw this bacterium over here, suppose if this is the bacterium, right, and this is the nucleoid of the bacterium, okay, and over here suppose if we have our recombinant DNA which we had already shown, okay, this is the recombinant DNA, then what will happen is, this recombinant DNA will be sent inside, it will be pulled inside, and what will happen is, this recombinant DNA will be absorbed by the bacterial cells and it will go inside the cell of the bacteria. Is this clear? So now when that recombinant DNA is absorbed by the host bacteria, then this bacteria is said to be transformed. I will write it down over here. This bacteria is called as transformed bacteria, and the phenomena is called as transformation. Is this clear? So now how do we do this? So we already have the recombinant DNA with us, okay, so we have that recombinant DNA in a liquid mixture, and what we do is, we take a plate on which bacteria have been cultured. So for example, just imagine this is a plate, okay, this is a plate on which bacteria have been cultured, okay, and this plate will have nutrient medium will be used to grow the bacteria. Suppose if the bacteria is E. coli, right, and this is going to have all the bacteria. Now in this plate where the bacteria are grown, what we are going to do is, we are going to pour the recombinant DNA liquid, the liquid which is going to have recombinant DNA, that we are going to pour. So this plate, in that we will be pouring the recombinant DNA, and over here I will write down, this is culture of E. coli, okay. So what will happen is, in that plate where E. coli is present, in that plate you are adding the recombinant DNA. So what happens is, the E. coli gets surrounded by recombinant DNA, so it gets something like this. If you want to see the image, just imagine the E. coli to be like this. If these orange circles are E. coli, okay, then these E. coli will be surrounded by your recombinant DNA. These blue colored ones I am showing as recombinant DNA, and obviously in the recombinant DNA will be the required gene. Obviously these are very small, so you will not be able to see. So each E. coli will be surrounded by recombinant DNA molecules, and what will happen is, some of the E. coli will absorb that recombinant DNA, some of them will not. See, when we are studying this in theory, we say that the competent host absorbs the foreign DNA, but no, all E. coli will not absorb recombinant DNA. So after some time, if you keep this mixture and if you see after some time, what is going to happen is, if these were the E. coli, then suppose if all these are the E. coli, then only some of them will have absorbed the recombinant DNA, and these ones which have absorbed the recombinant DNA, they are called as transformed bacteria. So I'm just going to write it down over here. These are the transformed colonies of E. coli. Is this clear? Whereas these ones which are there, these are non-transformed, so they have not absorbed the recombinant DNA from outside. Okay, so it is not a rule that all the E. coli will absorb. Suppose if there are 100 E. coli, it will happen that only 40 have absorbed the recombinant DNA, 60 have not. So there will be only 40 transformed bacteria, 60 will not be transformed. Is this clear? I hope this part is clear. Okay, so this is called as transfer of recombinant DNA into suitable competent host. So you just surround the host with the recombinant DNA and it will automatically absorb it. That is called as transformation. Now suppose if you don't want to use this process of transformation, can you directly inject the foreign DNA or the passenger DNA or the required gene into the host without using a vector? Just imagine if you don't have a vector. So if you don't have a vector, can you directly insert the required gene? It is possible. Okay, so if you directly want to pick up the gene and put it into the host cell, you can do that without using any vector, without using any plasmid, bacteriophage, anything. Okay, so I will write down some of the methods. Okay, so I should write down transfer of foreign DNA. So I am using this word now, or transfer of passenger DNA into into host cell without vector. So if I want to directly insert it into host without using a vector, then there are certain methods which I am going to write down over here. One method is called as electroporation. So electroporation is a method in which electric field is applied, and because of that electric field, the membrane of the host cells becomes more permeable, so they will absorb the required gene directly. You don't need to use the vector. That is called electroporation. I will make a separate video on all these methods. They are not explained in your book, so it is not important for your exam. The other method which can be used for transforming the required gene without a vector, it is called as lipofaction. Lipofaction means basically, you know that the plasma membrane is made up of phospholipids, right? Phospholipid bilayer. So a similar kind of material, phospholipid layer, is used, and in that the required gene is inserted, and that layer is kept near the cell of the host. So the cell membrane absorbs it, thinking that it is a cell membrane, and so the gene directly enters into the host. So here you are not using any vector. Okay, then there is another method called as micro injection. So micro injection is just like giving an injection to a person, but it is a micro needle. So you take that gene into the syringe and you inject it directly into the DNA of the host cell. So all these methods are used when you don't want a vector, but please remember, these methods you cannot use in the case of agrobacterium. If you are using agrobacterium as the host cell, then you have to use TI plasmid. Okay, so if you are using agrobacterium tumefaciens, I will write down the name once again, you have to remember that word. If you are using agrobacterium tumefaciens, please don't make mistake in the tumefaciens spelling, TUMEFACIENCS. If you are using agrobacterium tumefaciens, you have to use the TI plasmid. I have explained what is TI plasmid in the last lecture. Without TI plasmid, you cannot do transfer of required gene. You cannot use all these three methods. Is this clear? Okay, so this is the third step, transfer of recombinant DNA into a suitable competent host. It may be E. coli, or it may be H. pylori, or it may be Bacillus haemophilus, or it may be agrobacterium. Any suitable host, you directly transform it by keeping the recombinant DNA outside it. If you don't want to use a vector, directly you can insert the required gene or the foreign DNA or the passenger DNA by using these three methods. Okay, there is a gun method also, in which a gun bombards the required gene directly into the host cell. So all these methods are there, but anyway, for this lecture we are going to consider that we are using a vector. Okay, these are just the methods given. So I hope this third step is clear, transfer of recombinant DNA into competent host cell. So just recapping what we have done. First step, we selected organism, from that we removed the DNA, and from the DNA we cut the DNA using a restriction enzyme. We selected one fragment which was having the gene, that was called as the foreign DNA or passenger DNA or required gene or DNA fragment. Second step, same restriction enzyme we used to cut the vector. Suppose if we took the plasmid, you cut the plasmid with that. If we took bacteriophage, cut bacteriophage with that. If we took artificial chromosome, cut artificial chromosome with that. So we cut the vector with the same restriction enzyme. Then sticky end of vector plus sticky end of required gene attached to each other using DNA ligase, what you get is recombinant DNA. Please remember. Also remember, cloning vector is also called as vector DNA or it is called as vehicle DNA. Right, what you get is recombinant DNA. Third step, we put this recombinant DNA into host. Do we forcibly put it? No, the host cell absorbs it. It is called transformation. The hosts which absorb the recombinant DNA, they are called as transformed bacteria, transformed cell. Those which do not, they are called non-transformed. It is not compulsory that all E. coli or all agrobacterium will accept that recombinant DNA or foreign DNA. Is this clear? Okay, so that is the third step. If you don't want to use a vector, I have written down the methods how you can directly insert the foreign DNA or the desired gene into the host. Now we come to the fourth method. So I'm going to rub this off. So all these methods are very easy. Okay, they are explained in your book as well. At the end, we are going to draw a diagram of the complete recombinant DNA technology. Okay, so that will just recap. So now we go to the fourth step of recombinant DNA technology, and that is selection of the transformed host cell. So now, as I told you, all the host cells are not going to be transformed by the recombinant DNA. So as I told you, suppose if there are 100 bacteria, suppose we are taking the example of E. coli, out of those 100, only 40 might take up the recombinant DNA, 60 will not take up. So how will you know how many bacteria have taken up? Because see, finally you want to form a product, and that product will only be formed by the bacteria which have taken the recombinant DNA, because inside the recombinant DNA is your required gene. That required gene is going to cause E. coli to form that desired product which you want. So what is useful for you? The transformed bacteria is useful for you, not the non-transformed ones. But how will you come to know that in a colony of 100 bacteria which have transformed, which have not transformed? And the name of the step is selection of the transformed host cells. So how will you select which cells are transformed, which are not transformed? Because bacteria are very, very small. You cannot see them with the eye. The vector is much more smaller than the bacteria, that you cannot see even with a microscope. So how will you decide, or how can you know whether each of the bacterial cell, from each of the bacterial cell, how many of them are having the recombinant DNA or the vector inside it, and how many are not having? Because once you come to know about that, you will have to separate the transformed cells from the non-transformed ones. So how will you come to know? Can you think? I have already told you the reason, one of the reasons. So remember properties of a cloning vector. In that I had told you that the vector should have antibiotic resistant marker gene, and I had told you the marker gene can be used to trace the cloning vector. Now I will just show you an example. Just imagine that for these steps we are using plasmid PBr322 as the cloning vector. Okay, so that PBr322 we have cut. Now the structure of PBr322, I am just going to draw general structure. Okay, I'm not going to draw everything. PBr322 is so what it has got origin of replication, right? Then it has got this antibiotic resistant sites. So I will draw two sites over here. Okay, and I will show them with green color. So I'm going to show this site. Okay, so wait, let me draw this properly. So this is your PBr322. Okay, so now in this PBr322 there are two antibiotic resistant sites. So one I'm going to label with blue color. Okay, this blue color is called as AMPR. So this is the ampicillin resistant gene area. Okay, this ampicillin resistant gene, this entire blue area is the ampicillin resistant gene, because of which BPR322 cannot be destroyed by ampicillin antibiotic. Similarly, over here there is an area which is called as tetracycline resistant gene, which is TETR. So even tetracycline antibiotic cannot kill it. So if any bacteria that has been transformed by PBR322 plasmid, that bacteria cannot be killed by using ampicillin or tetracycline, because plasmid is having both these resistant genes. I am talking about PBR322 over here, please remember. Okay, so this is PBR322 vector. Now in the second step, we had used a restriction enzyme to cut the vector so that we could put the foreign DNA inside it or the passenger DNA inside it, right? Now just imagine that I have used the restriction enzyme which is called as PST1. Okay, I will write down the name over here. The name of the enzyme used is called as PST1. This is the restriction enzyme that I have used to cut the vector, and I have used this same restriction enzyme in the first step to cut the DNA and get the desired gene, PST1. Now when you see PBR322, the PBR322 is having restriction sites, cleavage sites. So just see where the cleavage sites are present. I am going to draw them with orange color. Now there are some restriction sites which are present in this tetracycline resistant gene area. I am going to show them in orange color. So these sites are basically different restriction enzymes which can cut in this area, tetracycline resistant gene area, and then there is certain restriction enzymes which will contain ampicillin resistant gene area. Now this PST1 gene, I will label it over here. This PST1 gene, PST1 restriction enzyme site is in ampicillin region. So if PST1 restriction enzyme is used, it will cut this area. So what is going to happen is this area will get cut. Which area is getting cut? Area of the ampicillin resistant gene is getting cut, and in this area your required DNA will be inserted. So if your required DNA is this, then this required DNA will be inserted over here, and this will become your recombinant DNA. So what is important over here is, depending on the restriction enzyme which you use, it will cut that area. So we have used PST1. Suppose PST1 cuts the area of the ampicillin resistant gene. If ampicillin resistant gene area has been cut, that means the ampicillin resistant gene is no longer present. If ampicillin resistant gene is no longer present, then PBR322 is no longer resistant to ampicillin. That means ampicillin can kill this plasmid. That means if this plasmid is inside the bacteria, that bacteria can also be killed by ampicillin. Similarly, suppose if we have not used PST1, suppose if this area, I am just giving you an example, suppose if this area, this site over here is EcoR1. Suppose if I use EcoR1, then EcoR1 restriction enzyme will cut which area? EcoR1 will cut this area of tetracycline resistant gene. So in that case, what will happen? Tetracycline will kill PBR, but ampicillin will not kill. So depending on which restriction enzyme you use, that area will be cleaved or removed by the restriction enzyme. Also remember, there are certain restriction enzymes which are present in areas which are not of the marker gene. So suppose if this restriction enzyme which I have drawn below, suppose if that restriction enzyme cuts PBR322, then that PBR will have both sides, ampicillin resistant also and tetracycline also. So both the genes are present, so none of the antibiotics can kill PBR, neither ampicillin nor tetracycline. Is this clear? So here we are taking the example of PST1. So what has happened? PST1 recognition site or restriction site is in ampicillin region. Ampicillin gene region gets cut because the PST1 cuts in that area, its sequence is over there, and when that area gets cut, the ampicillin resistant gene gets removed, and in that removed area, what is going to be inserted? It will be the required gene which will be inserted. Now that is the recombinant DNA. Now I have given you enough hints. Now can you tell me how can you select the transformed bacteria and non-transformed bacteria? The transformed bacteria are going to have this PBR322. Okay, let me use this blue color, okay, and this blue color I am showing to represent the foreign DNA, okay. So I will label over here, this is your foreign DNA or the required gene which is inside the PBR322. This is your recombinant DNA now, right? So the transformed bacteria are going to have this recombinant DNA. Very simple. If you want to find out which bacteria are transformed, which are not transformed, suppose if I use ampicillin, now you have that colony of bacteria, right? In that some of them are transformed, some are not transformed. Transformed means which are having recombinant DNA, non-transformed means which are not having recombinant DNA. Suppose in that plate if I pour ampicillin antibiotic, that is also a liquid, what will happen? All the cells will die. Why? Because the transformed bacteria, they don't have the ampicillin resistant gene, so they will die. And the non-transformed bacteria anyway don't have ampicillin resistance, so they will also die. So all bacteria will die. So you will not be able to make out which have transformed, which have not transformed. But if you use, instead of ampicillin, tetracycline in this case, if you pour tetracycline on the bacterial colony, now what will happen? All the bacteria which have transformed or which are having that PBR322 and the foreign DNA inside them, they will not be damaged by tetracycline. Why? Because over here tetracycline resistant gene is present, this area is still present, so it will not allow tetracycline to kill the plasmid, and that plasmid is inside the bacteria, so it will not allow the tetracycline to kill the bacteria. So if you use tetracycline, so here if you want to find out which bacteria are transformed, which are not transformed, very simple. If you are using PST1, then just pour tetracycline on the bacteria colonies. All the transformed bacteria, they will not die because of tetracycline resistant gene. All the non-transformed bacteria which are not having recombinant DNA, they will die because they don't have any resistance. Simple. So only the alive colonies will be present, those will be seen as spots on your plate, and all the dead ones you will not see. Very simple. Suppose if I would have used EcoR1 as restriction enzyme, then to differentiate between the two colonies, then I would have poured ampicillin, because ampicillin resistant gene would have been present and tetracycline resistant gene would not have been present. So depending on the restriction enzyme you use a suitable antibiotic, you pour it on the bacteria. The transformed ones will be saved because they have resistance, the non-transformed ones don't have resistance. So basically in this case, if we are using PST1, the non-transformed bacteria, they can be killed by ampicillin or tetracycline both, but the transformed bacteria will be killed only by ampicillin because they have lost the gene. Suppose if I say that I have put empty plasmids inside the bacteria, that means there is no foreign DNA, entire plasmids I have put, then in that case the transformed colonies cannot be killed by ampicillin or tetracycline. But that is of no use. Why will you put empty plasmids inside that? So I'm just telling you, I hope this is clear. So selection of the transformed host cells, how is it done? It is done by using suitable antibiotics, okay, based on restriction enzyme which is used. Then I will write down non-transformed bacteria will die, whereas transformed bacteria will survive. What are transformed bacteria? Transformed bacteria are the ones having the vector and the required gene, or they are having the recombinant DNA. Okay, why will the transformed bacteria survive? They will survive because of antibiotic resistance. So now this has not been explained properly in the book. In the book they have given you put ampicillin, okay, but ampicillin resistance has been lost, so they will die. It has not been explained, so I hope this is clear. Okay, so that is selection of the transformed host cell. So now after you pour tetracycline, what will happen is all the non-transformed bacteria will die, you will be left with transformed bacteria. Now what is the next step? So you are having, suppose say 40 transformed bacteria as I told you. but you want more bacteria because you want more final product, right? So what will you do? What is the next thing? Now you have to multiply the bacteria which are transformed, okay, so that you get more bacteria. So the next step after the fourth step is multiplication of the transformed cells. Is this clear? So that is the next step, multiplication. This is the fifth step of the transformed cells. The step before this was selection of the transformed cells. Once you have selected the transformed cells by using antibiotic resistance, next is multiplication of the transformed cells. Now how will you do multiplication of the transformed cells? So now let me draw over here. So imagine this was your original plate, right? And in this plate, suppose if I am drawing 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, I am not going to draw 100 bacteria, right? And inside this I am going to show the vector. So I am going to show 3 cells which have been transformed, which are blue in color, and rest 4 are non-transformed. So what is going to happen when you put tetracycline? This remaining 4 are going to die, right? So I am going to rub those 4 off. That means they have died. So once they have died, I have these 3 transformed bacteria which are living because they have antibiotic resistance. Now how do I multiply them further? So what I do is I take out some of the bacteria from this plate, okay, transform bacteria, and I grow it on a new plate. So I go to show the new plate with a new color. So I take another plate, a plate with nutrient medium, and in that I insert that transformed bacterium. This is the transformed bacterium, and what is going to happen is over the period of time, because of cell division, that bacteria will keep on dividing, multiplying, and what will happen is there will be many bacteria which will be formed. Obviously all the bacteria which will be formed after multiplication, they will be transformed, because once the plasmid is inside the bacteria, you know that the plasmid also replicates, you know that, right? That is one of the properties. So all the bacteria which will be formed, all the bacteria will be having the recombinant DNA inside it. They will be having the foreign DNA or the passenger DNA or the required gene inside them, okay? So that is the next step, multiplication of transformed cells. So how you do it? Very simple. The cells which have been transformed, now you know which of them are they, which of them they are. You just pick one from that colony, you put it into a new culture dish because you want more space, okay? And obviously in the previous culture dish there are a lot of waste dead cells also, so you don't want to grow transformed bacteria over here. So you pick transformed bacteria, put it into a new plate, and you grow or you multiply the transformed E. coli or any bacteria that you are using. If you are using agrobacterium, then agrobacterium. Is this clear? And this was your original plate with transformed plus non-transformed bacteria. The non-transformed bacteria, I have rubbed them off because they have died. That is why I have rubbed them off. So from that plate you pick one transform colony, you know, because the transform colonies can be seen. You pick them up, you put it in a new plate, they will keep on dividing, multiplying, and that is called multiplication of transferred cells. Very simple. So now you are having thousands of E. coli in the new plate, and each of them is having the recombinant DNA. Now please remember, recombinant DNA is also called as chimeric DNA. I forgot to tell you this. Recombinant DNA is also called as chimeric DNA, another name. So if somebody asks you what is the meaning of chimeric DNA is the same as recombinant DNA. It is just like this, that passenger DNA, a foreign DNA required gene is the same. Vector DNA, vehicle DNA, cloning vector is the same. In same way, recombinant DNA, chimeric DNA is the same thing. That means both cloning vector and required gene are present together. Okay, so this is the fifth step, multiplication of the transformed cells. And now you have the last step. You have got many colonies of transform cells. Each of the cell is having the recombinant DNA. Now all this you are doing for what? Why are you doing all this hard work? To get the desired product. Now please remember, the sixth step is called as obtaining the product. Now first of all, now we will ask, where is the product going to come from? See, you have done everything. You have taken the required gene, you have put it into the cloning vector, you have put the recombinant DNA into the host, you have multiplied the host with the recombinant DNA, all that you have done. But now where will you get the product? So suppose if we are using E. coli, then each of the E. coli is having recombinant DNA. Recombinant DNA is having the desired gene. Now do you remember protein synthesis? Protein synthesis, I will show it over here, is made up of two steps: transcription. Okay, transcription is followed by translation, and translation gives rise to, if you remember, proteins. And transcription, what undergoes transcription? If you remember, structural genes. If you remember, the gene undergoes transcription, fragment of the DNA undergoes transcription. Okay, so I will write it down over here. Transcription, basically genes are undergoing transcription, then they will form what? They will form mRNA, and mRNA will undergo translation and it will form protein. So basically, because of protein synthesis, DNA is converted into protein or gene is converted into protein. Now depending on which required gene you have added into the vector, the different type of protein will be formed. So depending on what was your required gene which you had added into the cloning vector, depending on that, E. coli will form the protein. For example, different type of products or proteins which can be formed by the host, I will write down their names. If suppose you use one type of gene, maybe you will get the product or the proteins which are called as vitamins. If you use other type of required gene, maybe you might get organic acid as the product. Maybe if you use some other required gene, you might get antibiotic as the product. So all these things which I have written down over here, vitamins, organic acid, antibiotics, etc., all these things are produced by the bacteria, by the host bacteria, from the gene which you have inserted. That gene is the foreign gene which you have inserted via the cloning vector, and that is going to undergo transcription, translation, and form these different products depending on which gene you have used. And finally, these products are useful to us: vitamins, organic acids, antibiotics. Okay, many different things, many other things are also formed. So now each of these E. coli which are transformed, which you have multiplied, they are forming these products inside their cell. Now what is the last step? The last step is obtaining the product. So suppose if we have formed vitamins, the vitamins are formed inside the cell of the E. coli, but you need to extract the vitamins. So how will you do? So we will be using something which is called as downstream process. What is the meaning of downstream process? A downstream process is a process in which the products are already formed by the microorganisms, but you separate the products from the microorganisms, so those products you can use for your welfare. That is called as a downstream process. Upstream process is a process in which you are growing the microorganisms to form the product. So if you are growing the microorganism to form the product, that is upstream. Once the product has been formed by the microorganism and you want to remove the product, that is called downstream. So using downstream process techniques, different techniques are there. You can remove the desired product which has been formed: vitamins, organic acids, antibiotics, any other proteins, enzymes. Those products can be removed. Once they are removed from the E. coli, you can use it. Simple. That is the end of recombinant DNA technology. So are these 6 steps clear? First step was isolation of required gene from the donor microorganism or cell. Second is insertion of the required gene into the cloning vector to get recombinant DNA molecule. Third is transfer of recombinant DNA into the competent host cell. Fourth is selection of the transform cells. Fifth is multiplication of the transform cells, and last is obtaining the desired product from the competent host cells. These are the 6 steps. I hope they are clear. Now what we are going to do is, finally, I know it has been a long lecture, we are just going to draw a final diagram which is going to show you the entire process of rDNA technology. Okay, so if it is asked in the exam, you can draw. So let us start. What was the first step? First step was you were removing the DNA from a suitable donor organism. So what I'm going to do is, donor cell I'm going to draw with this yellow color. I'm going to draw this circular cell. Okay, and inside the circular cell I'm going to draw this nucleus. Okay, and inside the nucleus I'm going to draw the DNA. This is the DNA. Now what is going to happen is, we have extracted this DNA, we have extracted, so I'm going to show it with a green arrow, and this DNA is over here. This is the extracted DNA. Okay, and what will be the next step? This extracted DNA we are going to cut with the help of restriction enzymes. So what we are going to have, we are going to have these fragments of DNA. Are you getting this point? Okay, so if you want, I will label everything over here. This is the donor cell. This is what? This is the DNA from donor cell. Okay, over here what should I write down? I should write down restriction enzymes have been used. And what are these? DNA fragments. And out of these you are going to use one DNA fragment as the passenger DNA or the foreign DNA. Okay, so this is there. Suppose if we are going to use this last one as the foreign DNA. Anyway, what is the second step? In the second step, we take the cloning vector. Okay, and from the cloning vector we subject the cloning vector to the same restriction enzyme. So what we are going to do in the next step, I am going to show this plasmid over here. Now the plasmid, what should I do? Should I use it showing a yellow color, or I will show an orange color? I will show an orange color. So over here I am going to show a plasmid. Oh, I should draw a smaller one. This is the plasmid. Okay, so over here I am going to write down vector, any vector plasmid bacteriophage, and then I am going to show an arrow. Again I am going to write same restriction enzyme. Okay, so bracket, I will write down same used for step number 1. And then what I'm going to get is, I'm going to get the vector which has been cut. Correct, this is the cut vector. Now what we have to show? We have to show in the second step itself that this required gene, we are going to insert it into the vector. So I am going to show this dual arrow like this. Pay attention. So you can draw these own diagrams on your own. I am not copying this from the textbook or anything. I am just thinking of what I know and I am drawing this diagram. So this diagram is going to be like this. So now I am going to draw this recombinant DNA molecule. Is this clear? This is the vector or the plasmid, whatever you want to say, and this is the required DNA or the passenger DNA. If you want, I will label. This is called as the vehicle DNA, or it is also called as vector DNA, or it is also called as cloning vector. This is called as passenger DNA, or it is also called as foreign DNA, or it is called as required gene, or it is also called as an insert. Please remember, it is also called as a DNA insert. Insert means it is inserted into the cloning vector, and together this entire molecule, what is it called as? This is called as your recombinant DNA. Is this clear? So now you have the recombinant DNA. So you have shown the first two steps. Third step is transfer of the recombinant DNA into the host cell. So what you are going to show is this will be transferred into the host cell. So how am I going to show the host cell? I am going to show the host cell like this in yellow color. This is the host bacterium. Okay, and I'm going to show this. This is the nucleoid of the host bacterium. I'm going to label this. This is the host cell. It can be agrobacterium, it can be E. coli, any of those. And I'm again going to show a dual arrow. So let me rub this off. Okay. So this arrow will go down. This arrow will also join. And what I'm going to get is I'm going to get a transformed bacterium. So I'm going to draw a transformed bacterium. This is your third step. This is the bacterium, right? I'm just drawing a nucleoid just like that, and inside this I'm going to show this recombinant DNA. Is this clear? And this is the recombinant DNA. So this is called as what? This is called as the transformed host cell. Is this clear? So this is step number 3. Okay, step number 4 is selection of the transformed host cells. You have to select the ones which are transformed, that is by using the marker gene antibiotic resistance. Then the next 5th step is multiplication. So now what will be the next step? You have to take this transformed host cell and you have to multiply it. So that multiplication you can show in this manner. You can show that from one bacterium many bacterium have been formed. Many bacteria have been formed. I'm just showing 3 different examples because I don't have much space or time over here. So I'm just showing these 3 bacteria which have been formed. Okay, and each of them I will show a nucleoid. This is the nucleoid for each one, and then I will show the recombinant DNA in each one of them. Okay. This is a proper way of showing stepwise how a recombinant DNA experiment is happening, and then the foreign DNA or the required gene inside the vector. So each of them is having the recombinant DNA. So over here I will write down multiplication of transformed cell. This is step number 5. And finally what is going to happen is, see, inside each cell also each plasmid is also going to divide, that. Okay, and each plasmid will further divide to give more genes, and more genes mean more product. So what is going to happen is, if you want, you can show it over here, that inside each E. coli or inside each host, the plasmids are also independently replicating. So in each one of them you are having two plasmids or even more. I don't have space to show more, so I am showing two plasmids because independent replication is also there. That was also a property of cloning vectors. And now each one of these is going to form the products. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, now for products I'm going to use a different color over here, red. So I'm going to show this red things which are formed, and these red things are the products which are formed. Suppose they are vitamins. Okay, so all these products will be formed, and this is last step, which is obtaining the product by downstream process. Okay, so I will write down over here, product formed by host cell, or I should write down transformed host cell, I should just scroll this down. Host cell due to the inserted recombinant DNA. Is this clear? That is the last step. So this is the end of your recombinant DNA technology. Just have a look at this diagram. Okay, make sure that you have understood it. First step, you took the donor cell. From the donor cell you removed the DNA. I told you how you do that. Homogenizer, okay, detergent, ethanol, you remove the DNA you cut using restriction enzyme, PST1 if you are using here. For the vector also use the same thing, okay, use the same restriction enzyme, and then what you do is you combine both the cut vector and the required gene, and what you get is the recombinant DNA. Okay, I have used all the different words over here: vehicle DNA, vector DNA, cloning vector, that is the vector. Passenger DNA, foreign DNA, required gene, insert is also a word. If I say insert, means that is the desired gene which is inserted into the cloning vector. So this combination is called as, this hybrid molecule is called recombinant DNA. Third step was inserting the recombinant DNA into a suitable host, so that I have shown over here, host cell plus recombinant DNA, and I get the transformed host cell. Here I am not showing the cells which are not transformed. The non-transformed cells will be empty like this host cell. Okay, then next step is obviously selection of transformed cells, that you know. If you are using PST1, then you add tetracycline. If you are using any other restriction enzyme which is in tetracycline resistant gene, then you use ampicillin. I've told you that. So you use the suitable antibiotic and you select all the transformed host cells, then you multiply the selected transform host cells by putting them in another plate, growing them. They will multiply, plasmids inside them will multiply, and the genes will multiply. Each gene will undergo transcription, translation, form the product, and depending on the gene the product will be formed. If you want vitamins, use one gene. If you want antibiotics, use other gene. If you want organic acids, use any other gene. So depending on what final product you want, you put the foreign, you use the original required gene. Is this clear? So that is the end of recombinant DNA technology. This was a long lecture but a very important one, so I hope this is clear. Okay, if you have any doubts you can let me know. If you like this lecture, please do give this lecture this video a like. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe and press the bell icon, and also share it with your friends. Thanks a lot.